Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Dark Romance. Tonight, we step deeper into a world where love cuts like a blade and desire is tangled with danger. A mansion where secrets breathe through the walls, where hearts are claimed and broken, and nothing is ever as it seems. So dim the lights, let the shadows pull you closer, and sink into the darkness with us.
The sky should have wept with me, but it didn't. The day my fiancé was buried, the sun dared to shine. I stood at the edge of the grave, black dress clinging to my body like a second skin, as if even fabric understood the weight pressing down on me. My fingers trembled around the bouquet of lilies, their fragrance too sweet, too alive for the rot that swallowed the air. Adrian was gone. The man I was supposed to marry. The man I thought I knew. The priest's voice blurred into the background, a low hum against the hammering of my heart. People whispered, shifting in the crowd, but my eyes fixed on the coffin disappearing into the earth. Each shovel of dirt sounded like thunder. Each thud another nail sealing me in with him. And then I felt it. A gaze, burning, heavy, unrelenting. I turned, and there he was. Damian Cross. Tall, composed, dressed in black, tailored perfection. He didn't look like a mourner. He looked like a wolf dropped into a field of sheep. His eyes weren't red with grief. They weren't wet with loss. They were cold, sharp, assessing me like I was his to claim. The world seemed to shift under his stare. The whispers died. The priest's voice faded. The air stilled, until it was just him and me. My stomach twisted. Because Damian wasn't just Adrian's best friend. He was the last person who saw him alive. And deep inside, where grief and fury tangled into something jagged, I wondered, was the man standing across from me here to grieve, or to gloat?
The funeral ended, but death followed me home. I shut the apartment door behind me, pressing my back to it like I could hold the silence together. The lilies from Adrian's grave still clung to my hands, their petals bruised, their stems broken. I dropped them in the trash. I couldn't bear the sight of anything that reminded me of him. But when I turned toward the living room, I wasn't alone. Damian Cross sat in my chair, legs spread, posture relaxed, like he belonged there, like he owned the space. The audacity stole the air from my lungs. I froze. "What the hell are you doing here?" His eyes slid to me, slow, deliberate. The kind of look that strips you bare without touching you, making sure you're safe. "Safe?" I laughed, the sound harsh, jagged. "From what?" "My grief?" He didn't flinch. "From the people who killed him." My blood ran cold. "The police said it was an accident." "A fire." He leaned forward, resting his elbows on his knees, and for the first time I caught the flicker in his gaze. Dark, dangerous, and certain. "The police are wrong. Adrian's death wasn't an accident, and now," his lips curved, not a smile, more like a warning. "They'll be coming for you." My chest tightened. The room shrank around me. My heart screamed to believe him, and at the same time, how could I? This man wasn't my savior. He was the shadow standing at my fiancé's grave, the man whose silence dripped with secrets. "Get out," I whispered, even though my voice trembled. Damian rose slowly, like a predator indulging prey with one last chance to run. He stopped only inches away, his presence suffocating, his cologne sharp and intoxicating. "I'll leave tonight," he murmured, eyes locked on mine. "But remember this, Iris. Grief won't kill you. Denial will." And just like that, he walked out, leaving the echo of his words smoldering in the air. I wanted to slam the door shut, to lock him out of my life forever, but deep down, I knew. Damian Cross wasn't leaving. Not until he was done with me. Sleep abandoned me. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling, the apartment too quiet, too hollow without Adrian's breathing beside me. But it wasn't his absence that kept me awake. It was Damian's words. The people who killed him, they'll be coming for you. The phrase gnawed at my thoughts until morning bled through the curtains. By the time I dragged myself up, shadows already sat heavy beneath my eyes. I needed air, movement, anything to outrun the suffocating weight. The city streets buzzed with life, indifferent to my grief. I ducked into the corner cafe Adrian used to love. Familiar, safe, or so I thought, because he was there. Damian sat at a table near the back, black coffee untouched, gaze fixed on me the moment I walked in. My stomach clenched. "Are you following me now?" I hissed when I approached. He didn't answer immediately. He just studied me, the way one might study a painting, searching for flaws, hidden meanings. Then, "You shouldn't be out alone. I'm not your responsibility." His jaw flexed, a flicker of something sharp passing through his eyes. "You think I asked for this? For you?" He leaned closer, voice low enough to shiver down my spine. "If I had a choice, I'd let you rot in your grief." But Adrian made me promise, and the name struck like a blade. My chest tightened, my nails dug into my palms. Promise? What kind of promise? Damian's silence was answer enough. Anger surged hot and reckless, momentarily stronger than fear. I grabbed his coffee and poured it across the table, liquid splattering between us. "Stay away from me!" But he didn't flinch. He didn't shout. He just looked at me with those unblinking eyes, and for a breathless moment, I thought I saw it, desire, burning through the ice. Then his lips curved into that same sharp, almost smile. "Break all the cups you want, Iris. You'll still need me when the fire comes back." And I hated him for it. Because a part of me, the part that still trembled at night, feared he might be right. I tried to lose him. For 3 days I avoided the cafe. I kept my phone off. I took unfamiliar streets on the way home, ducking into shops, watching over my shoulder until paranoia crawled under my skin. Still, I felt him. Damian Cross was like smoke. You couldn't hold him, but you couldn't escape him either. On the 3rd night, I jolted awake at the sound of glass breaking. My heart pounded as I grabbed the lamp from my nightstand, creeping toward the living room. The shadows stretched long across the floor, and the bitter scent of smoke lingered in the air. My breath caught. Smoke. I flicked the light on. A brick lay on the floor, glass shards scattered around it. A single piece of paper was tied around the brick with rough twine. "Stay quiet, or burn like him." The world tilted, my pulse roaring in my ears. My hand shook so violently, I almost dropped the note. "Don't move." The voice was low, commanding, too close. I spun, lamp raised like a weapon, only to find him there. Damian. Standing in the corner of my apartment as if he'd been waiting all along, my chest heaved. What the hell are you doing here?" His gaze flicked to the shattered window, then back to me. "Saving your life. You broke into my apartment, and someone else just tried to burn you alive." His voice was cold, cutting, no patience for my outrage. He stepped closer, plucking the note from my trembling fingers. His touch brushed mine, scorching. "I told you this wasn't over, Iris." I hated the way my knees weakened at his nearness. Hated the way my body betrayed me while my mind screamed to run. "Get out," I whispered, though the word came out more like a plea than a command. Damian's eyes darkened, dangerous and unyielding. "No." He slipped the note into his coat pocket, then leaned in, his breath ghosting against my ear. "You don't get it yet. I'm not leaving you alone. Not now. Not ever." My heart slammed against my ribs. Because in that moment, I realized something far worse than the threat scrawled on that paper. I was more terrified of Damian Cross staying in my life than I was of him leaving. The note burned in my mind long after Damian left with it. I didn't sleep. I couldn't. I sat at the kitchen table, staring at the broken window, at the brick that had shattered my fragile sense of safety. My world had already collapsed once, Adrian's death. Now it was crumbling again, and at the center of it all was Damian Cross, the man who never cried at the funeral, the man who appeared in every shadow I turned away from, the man who seemed to know more about Adrian's death than I ever would. By morning, I couldn't take it anymore. I pulled out the box of Adrian's things the police had returned. His watch, his wallet, a set of keys scorched black along the edges. My hands trembled as I sifted through them, searching for something, anything that could explain why someone wanted me silent. Instead, I found it. A receipt. Crumpled, half-burnt, tucked inside Adrian's wallet. My breath caught when I read the time stamped at the bottom. The night of the fire, 10 minutes before the flames started. A liquor store on the far side of the city. Adrian couldn't have been there. He was already inside the house when it burned, unless he wasn't. My stomach twisted as a new thought took root. What if Adrian hadn't died trapped in the fire at all? What if someone had been there with him, and I already knew the only man who could answer that? By the time I reached Damian's office, my nerves were raw. His building was steel and glass, towering, cold, just like him. The receptionist tried to stop me, but I shoved past, storming into his office without knocking. Damian sat behind a massive desk, suit immaculate, gaze snapping up the moment I burst in. He didn't look surprised. He never looked surprised. I slammed the receipt down in front of him. "You were with him that night, weren't you?" For the first time, something flickered in his expression. Not guilt, not denial. Something sharper. His voice was low, deliberate. "Careful, Iris. Some truths aren't meant for you." My chest tightened, fury and fear colliding. "Then tell me, did you kill him?" Silence. Heavy. Endless. And then Damian stood, coming around the desk, closing the distance between us until I had to tilt my head back to keep his gaze. His eyes burned into me, cold and consuming. "If I had," he murmured, so close his breath brushed my lips. "Would you really want to know?" The air between us snapped, dangerous and electric, and for one reckless second, I didn't know if I wanted to slap him or kiss him. The silence between us was unbearable. It pressed into my skin like heat, like smoke. Damian's words coiled inside me. "Would you really want to know? I should have walked out. I should have left him standing there with his secrets." But my feet refused to move. "Tell me the truth," I demanded, though my voice cracked. "If you were with Adrian that night, why did you survive and he didn't?" Damian's jaw tightened. His eyes swept over me slowly, like he was calculating whether I was strong enough to survive the answer. "I don't owe you an explanation," he said finally, his voice sharp, final. Rage ripped through me, hotter than grief. "You don't owe me. He was my fiancé." My hand slammed against his chest, shoving him, but he barely moved. "You stand there, haunting me, following me, acting like you own my life, but you won't even tell me why he's dead?" His hand shot out, catching my wrist before I could strike him again. The grip was firm, unyielding, but not painful, at least not yet. His eyes blazed with something I couldn't name. "Iris," he growled, voice low and dangerous. "You think you want the truth, but you don't. The truth will ruin the man you thought you loved. It will ruin you." My throat tightened. My chest ached. "Then ruin me," I whispered, hating how broken I sounded. "I'd rather choke on ashes than live in your silence." For a heartbeat, his expression shifted. Something raw, something dangerous flickered across it. Then it was gone, smothered under that cold, unshakable mask. He released me suddenly, turning away, his voice flat. "Go home, Iris." But as I stumbled back toward the door, trembling, one thought cut deeper than all the rest. Damian Cross wasn't protecting me from danger. He was protecting me from him. The next morning, I woke to the sound of someone unlocking my door. Panic jolted through me. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a heavy glass vase, and held it like a weapon as footsteps echoed in my apartment. "Put that down before you hurt yourself." His voice, low, icy, unmistakable. Damian. I lowered the vase only an inch, fury colliding with fear. "How the hell did you get in here?" He held up a set of keys, dangling them casually between his fingers. "Adrian gave me a copy years ago." The words cut sharper than they should have. Another secret. Another reminder of how little I'd really known about the man I was going to marry. "You don't get to just walk in here," I snapped, clutching the vase tighter. "You don't get to decide." "I already did," Damian interrupted, stepping closer, eyes like steel. "Someone threw a brick through your window 3 nights ago. Someone left you a threat, and you still think you get to tell me no?" My breath caught. He was too close. Too calm, too sure. "I don't need you," I lied. His lips curved, not in amusement but in something darker. "You don't get a choice, Iris. Protection isn't something you accept. It's something I give, and you're going to take it." He moved past me, already scanning my apartment like it belonged to him, opening cabinets, checking locks, studying corners as if danger lurked in every shadow. It was infuriating and terrifying, and deep down, shamefully, a part of me felt safer. "Pack a bag," he ordered without looking back. My pulse skipped. "What? You're not staying here. Not when someone wants you dead. You'll come with me." "I won't," I said, but my voice lacked strength. Damian finally turned, his gaze burning into mine, unblinking, unyielding. "You will, or I'll carry you out myself." For a moment, silence pressed heavy between us. Then slowly the vase slipped from my hands, hitting the carpet with a dull thud. Because I realized something I didn't want to admit. Damian Cross wasn't asking. He was chaining me to him, one command at a time. By the time we reached his car, I'd already rehearsed a dozen ways to run. None of them worked, because Damian was always one step ahead. He opened the passenger door like it was a command, not a courtesy. "Get in." I wanted to resist, to throw the door shut and bolt down the street, but his presence was a gravity I couldn't fight, pulling me closer until I sank into the leather seat, breath trembling. The city blurred past the window as he drove. I forced myself to speak. "You can't just kidnap me." His lips twitched, the ghost of a smirk. "Funny. You're still sitting here. That's because you—" I cut myself off, teeth gritted. I refused to admit he scared me. I refused to admit that part of me didn't want to leave. We drove into the heart of downtown, where glass towers reached for the clouds and money dripped from every polished surface. He pulled into the underground garage of a skyscraper that screamed wealth and power. "This is your place?" I asked, my voice barely a whisper. One of them. The elevator ride was silent, the kind of silence that pressed against your skin, heavy and suffocating. When the doors opened, I stepped into a penthouse that looked more like a fortress than a home. Floor-to-ceiling windows, steel fixtures, not a trace of softness. "Why here?" I asked, wrapping my arms around myself. "Because no one can touch you here." He stripped off his jacket, tossing it across a chair with casual dominance. "No one except me." The words were meant as a warning, but the heat in his tone, it made my pulse trip. I backed away, but Damian closed the space between us in 2 steps, cornering me against the cold glass. His hand braced beside my head, his body a school of heat and menace. "You hate me," he murmured, voice brushing my ear. "But your body doesn't." My breath hitched. He was too close, too consuming. Every nerve screamed to push him away, but my hands stayed frozen at my sides. "I'll never forgive you," I whispered. "I don't need forgiveness, Iris." His gaze locked on mine, sharp and relentless. "I need you alive, and whether you fight me or not, you belong in my world now." The air between us thickened, magnetic, dangerous. For a fraction of a second, I thought he might kiss me. Instead, Damian stepped back, leaving me trembling against the glass. "Guest rooms down the hall. Try not to wander. You won't like what you find." And just like that, he walked away, leaving me caught between fury, fear, and the sickening truth that part of me wanted him to come back. The guest room felt like a cage dressed in luxury. A silk-draped bed, polished wood, walls bare except for one massive abstract painting in shades of ash and crimson. Beautiful, cold, unwelcoming. I didn't sleep. Couldn't. Every sound in the penthouse reminded me I wasn't alone. The faint clink of glass in the kitchen, the creak of footsteps, the low murmur of Damian's voice on the phone. Sharp, commanding, lethal. Hours later, curiosity gnawed at me more than fear, so I crept down the hall. The penthouse was dark, lit only by the glow spilling from the kitchen, and there he was. Damian Cross, the man who ruled entire rooms with a glance, sat alone at the counter, his tie discarded, his shirt unbuttoned at the throat. A bottle of whiskey rested by his elbow, glass half full. But it wasn't the drink that froze me. It was his face. For once, he wasn't carved from steel. He looked tired, haunted. His gaze was locked on the glass in his hand, like it held ghosts only he could see. "Couldn't sleep?" His voice startled me. He didn't turn, but I knew he'd sensed me. Of course he had. I swallowed, stepping closer. "Neither could you." A humorless smirk tugged his mouth. "Sleep's a luxury men like me can't afford." "Men like you," I echoed softly. "What does that even mean?" This time he did look at me, and for a heartbeat I saw it, the crack in his armor. Grief, regret, something raw and human flickered in his eyes before it vanished behind the steel again. "Go back to bed, Iris." I should have listened, but something reckless took root in me. What happened to Adrian that night? The glass hit the counter harder than it should have, whiskey sloshing over the rim. Damian stood, towering over me, his shadow swallowing mine. "You think you want the truth," he said, low and dangerous, "but the truth will break you." His breath brushed my lips, close enough to feel, close enough to make my chest ache with confusion. And just when I thought he'd shove me away, Damian's hand came up, gentle, almost hesitant, as his fingers brushed a stray tear from my cheek. The touch was brief, too brief, but it left fire in its wake. Then he pulled back, jaw tight, eyes shuttered. "Go." I obeyed this time, retreating down the hall with my heart pounding. But as I shut the guest room door behind me, one thought wouldn't let me go. Damian Cross wasn't just a monster. He was a man drowning in something far darker than I understood. And for reasons I couldn't explain, I wanted to know what. Morning came far too bright for the night I'd survived. I woke tangled in silk sheets, the taste of his world still on my tongue. Expensive, dangerous, addictive. The scent of coffee lured me into the kitchen. Damian was already there, perfectly put together in another black suit, like the man hadn't touched sleep at all. He didn't look at me when he slid a mug across the counter. Drink. I wrapped my fingers around the cup, heat searing my palms. Is this supposed to make me forget that you kidnapped me? A smirk ghosted his lips. If I wanted to kidnap you, Iris, you'd wake up chained in the basement. Don't mistake protection for possession. The word protection made something twist in my chest. Protection from what? He didn't answer. He never did. Instead, he picked up his phone, scrolling through messages, his jaw ticking with unspoken tension. I hated the silence between us, the way he left me with questions gnawing at my ribs. So I pushed. You cared about him, didn't you? I asked softly. About Adrian. His eyes lifted slowly, dark and sharp as blades. For a moment, I thought he'd cut me down with words. Instead, he stepped closer, his shadow swallowing mine until I felt small beneath him. Care is a weakness, he murmured, voice low enough to sting. It gets men killed. Is that what happened to him? My breath trembled, but I didn't back down. Did you care too much? The silence that followed was deafening. His hand shot out, gripping the counter beside me, caging me in. His other hand came up, not touching, hovering near my jaw, close enough to burn. You think you're ready for answers, Damian said, his voice rougher than I'd ever heard it. But the truth, Iris. His gaze dropped to my mouth. It doesn't just break. It devours. My chest rose and fell too fast. I hated the way my body betrayed me, leaning into his heat, craving the danger I should have run from. Then tell me, I whispered, my voice unsteady but firm. Let it devour me. For the first time, Damian faltered. His mask cracked, his pupils darkened, and for one terrifying, thrilling second, I thought he'd kiss me, claim me right there against the marble counter. But he didn't. He pulled back, the air snapping cold between us. Get dressed, he said sharply. You're coming with me. And just like that, he shut the door and everything simmering between us, leaving me shaken and burning for more. The car was too quiet. Damian didn't speak once during the ride, his focus sharp on the road ahead. The city unfolded outside my window, sunlight bouncing off glass towers, crowds moving like ants below. Ordinary life. Yet I was being pulled further from it with every mile. Where are we going? I asked finally. His hand tightened on the steering wheel. Somewhere you'll learn why I can't let you walk away. The words should have terrified me. Instead, they rooted deeper, a thorn of curiosity I couldn't rip free. We pulled into a gated compound, guarded by men in black suits with weapons I didn't recognize but knew were illegal. Damian rolled down the window, exchanged a curt nod, and the gates opened like the jaws of a predator. Inside was another world. Sleek black cars lined the driveway, the building looming above us like a fortress of steel and glass. Men moved with military precision, bodyguards, enforcers, soldiers. Damian cut the engine, then glanced at me. Stay close. Don't speak unless I tell you I bristled. I'm not a child. No, he said darkly, you're bait. And bait doesn't talk. The words froze me. Before I could argue, he was out of the car, opening my door with an authority that left no room for refusal. I followed him inside, my pulse a war drum in my ears. The interior was colder than his penthouse. Marble floors, steel beams, glass walls revealing men counting stacks of cash, exchanging briefcases, sharpening knives. This wasn't business. This was empire. Whispers followed us as Damian led me through, his hand grazing the small of my back like a silent leash. They looked at me like I didn't belong, like I wouldn't last. We stopped in a vast office at the top floor, where the city skyline stretched endless behind tinted glass. Damian poured himself a drink, finally acknowledging me. "You wanted answers," he said, swirling the amber liquid. "Here's one. Adrian wasn't the man you thought he was." My chest tightened. "Don't you dare. He lied to you." Damian's gaze cut sharp, unyielding. "And the night he died, he wasn't just with me. He was with them. My voice broke. "People who would slit your throat just for speaking his name." Damian set down the glass, stepping closer until I felt caged again, every breath tangled with his. "Adrian made a deal with devils. And now, those devils want you." The ground shifted beneath me, reality crumbling piece by piece. But through the chaos, one thing remained clear. Damian wasn't just keeping me here to torture me. He was keeping me here because letting me go meant I'd be dead before sunrise. I barely had time to breathe before the office door slammed open. Two men dragged someone inside, a stranger, bound and gagged, his eyes wild with terror. They threw him to the floor at Damian's feet, and the sound of bone against marble made me flinch. The air thickened, sharp with fear. Damian didn't even look surprised. "Who is he?" I whispered, my voice cracking. "One of Adrian's friends." Damian's tone was flat, merciless. He pulled a pistol from his holster, its weight casual in his hand. "One of the men who sold him out." My heart lurched. "Sold him out for what?" Damian's eyes flicked to me, then back to the man writhing on the floor. "Power, money, doesn't matter. He talked, and because he talked, Adrian is dead." The world tilted. This was too much, too raw, too violent. You're not going to kill him right here." The gunshot shattered the air before I could finish. One sharp crack. The man's body jerked, then went still. I gasped, stumbling back, hand over my mouth. The scent of gunpowder and blood burned my throat. Damian holstered his weapon, calm as if he'd just closed a business deal. He finally looked at me, and what I saw in his eyes wasn't remorse. It was something colder, necessary. "You wanted to understand my world," he said softly. "Now you do." Tears blurred my vision. "You're a monster." His jaw clenched, but he stepped closer anyway, towering over me until his shadow swallowed mine. "No, I'm the reason you're still breathing." He reached out, brushing his thumb across my cheek again, the same way he had the night before. A cruel tenderness, a reminder of the chains binding me to him. My body betrayed me, trembling at his touch, my pulse leaping. Hate and something darker tangled inside me until I couldn't tell them apart. Damian leaned close, his breath hot against my ear. "You can curse me, hate me, fear me, but you don't get to leave me. Not now, not ever." The corpse on the floor bled silence into the room. My hands shook, my lungs burned, and yet some twisted part of me believed him. Because monsters didn't just kill. Sometimes they saved. The body was gone by morning. Men came in silence, wrapped it, cleaned the marble floor until there was no trace of blood. No trace of the man who had begged with his eyes before Damian pulled the trigger. But I still saw it. Every time I blinked, the image seared itself deeper into my mind. I sat at the window of the penthouse, staring down at the city that kept moving as if nothing had happened. People rushing to work, buying coffee, living. Meanwhile, I was trapped in a gilded cage, haunted by ghosts. "You haven't eaten." His voice slid into the room, smooth and cold as ever. Damian stood in the doorway, a tray balanced in his hand. Eggs, toast, coffee. Domestic, if not for the way he carried it like a weapon. "I'm not hungry." He set the tray down on the table anyway. "Starving yourself won't bring him back." My head snapped up. "Don't you dare say his name." Damian didn't flinch. He stepped closer until his presence pressed against me like a shadow I couldn't escape. "You think I enjoy this? That I put bullets in men for sport?" His voice dropped lower, harsh but cracking at the edges. "I don't, but I will, over and over, if it means keeping you alive." My throat tightened. I wanted to scream, to claw at him, to demand answers he still wouldn't give. Instead, the words slipped out small and raw. Why me? Why not let them take me? His jaw worked. For a moment, I thought he wouldn't answer. Then, "Because Adrian made promises he couldn't keep. And now you're the only leverage left, leverage." The word sliced through me. I wasn't a fiancé, a woman, a person. I was currency in a war I didn't understand. Tears stung my eyes, but I refused to let them fall. "So that's it. I'm just your bargaining chip." Damian's hand shot out, gripping my chin, tilting my face up to his. His touch was firm, not gentle, his eyes burning into mine. "No, Iris. You're not a chip. You're the fuse. And if they get their hands on you, this city burns." My breath caught. For the first time, I saw something in him that wasn't just control or cruelty. It was fear. Not of death, not of power. Fear of losing me. And that terrified me more than the blood still drying in my memory. The day felt different from the start. The city skyline was smothered by storm clouds, thunder growling in the distance like a predator circling. I tried to tell myself it was only weather, but deep inside, I knew something was coming. Damian had been on edge all morning, pacing the length of the penthouse, phone pressed to his ear, voice a low snarl of clipped commands. His men moved in and out like shadows, their eyes sharp, hands brushing their weapons too often. I stayed near the window, restless, 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 until a sound cut through the tension. The elevator chimed. Every man in the room went rigid. Damian was across the floor in seconds, gun already in his hand, body blocking mine before I could even breathe. The doors slid open. A package sat on the floor, small, harmless looking, wrapped in plain brown paper. No one moved. One of Damian's men stepped forward, bent, and picked it up. He brought it to the table, knife slicing through the wrapping. Inside was a wooden box, and when the lid creaked open, the air went cold. Blood. A single severed finger, pale and stiff, lying atop a folded note. My stomach lurched. I stumbled back, a hand flying to my mouth. The metallic tang hit the air, sharp and undeniable. Damian's expression didn't change, but I saw it, the flicker in his eyes, a darkness sharpened into rage. He plucked the note from the box and read it silently. When he looked at me, his jaw was a steel trap. "They know where you are." Fear swallowed me whole. What does that mean?" "It means," Damian growled, crumpling the note in his fist, They're done playing games. The storm outside broke then, rain hammering against the glass as lightning split the sky. And I realized it wasn't the weather I'd felt in my bones. It was the war that had finally found us. The box was gone within minutes, but the blood still lingered in the air. I couldn't shake the image of that severed finger, the note soaked in menace. My stomach twisted, but Damian burned. I'd seen him cold, I'd seen him controlled, but now he was fire-caged in flesh. "Get her ready," he snapped to one of his men. "She's coming with me." "What?" My voice cracked, raw with panic. "No, I'm not going anywhere near." His gaze sliced into mine, silencing me instantly. "They came to my door, Iris. They left blood in my home. You think I'll hide you away like prey? Number. Tonight, they learn who you belong to." The words scorched me, terrifying and intoxicating all at once. Minutes later, I was shoved into his car, storm still raging above us, city lights smeared by rain. Damian's jaw was stone, his knuckles white against the steering wheel. Every line of his body screamed violence held barely in check. We stopped at a warehouse on the riverfront, shadows moving inside. Armed men. Enemies. Damian killed the engine, turned to me, and his hand gripped my chin with bruising force. "You don't leave this car. You don't open the door, not for anyone but me. Understand?" I wanted to fight him, to scream, but fear glued my tongue to the roof of my mouth. I nodded. Then he was gone. The moment his feet hit the ground, chaos erupted. Gunfire cracked through the night, sharp and relentless. Shouts echoed, bodies colliding in violence. Lightning lit up the warehouse like a stage, and I saw him, Damian, moving like a shadow with teeth, merciless and unstoppable. Men fell around him, one after another, blood staining the rain-slick concrete. He was a monster unleashed, every bullet, every strike a vow, written in violence. No one touches what's mine. I pressed my palms against the window, breath fogging the glass. My heart pounded so hard I thought it would break free from my chest. I should have been horrified, and I was, but God help me. I couldn't look away, because in that moment, drenched in rain and blood, Damian Cross wasn't just a man. He was war itself, and he was fighting for me. The gunfire faded. The shouting died. Silence fell heavy, broken only by the rain hammering against the roof of the car. My breath came in shallow bursts, my nails digging into the leather seat. I wanted to open the door, to run, but Damian's command echoed in my skull. "Don't move. Don't leave." And then he appeared. The car door yanked open, and Damian slid inside, rainwater dripping from his hair, blood spattered across his white shirt. Not all of it was his. The storm outside was wild, but the storm in him was worse. He shut the door, the world muffled instantly. For a moment, neither of us spoke. His chest heaved, eyes dark and sharp, like the violence hadn't burned out yet, like it was still eating him alive. "You killed them," I whispered, voice shaking. "They touched what's mine," he growled. Not an apology, but a sentence. I should have recoiled, should have pressed myself against the opposite door, but instead my body betrayed me again, heat rushing through my veins, my pulse beating out of rhythm. Damian leaned back against the seat, hand running over his face, streaking blood across his jaw. His other hand, trembling faintly, gripped the steering wheel. For the first time, I saw it. The cost. He wasn't untouchable. He was burning himself alive to keep me safe. Something inside me cracked. Without thinking, I reached out, my fingers brushing his hand where it clenched the wheel. His head snapped toward me, eyes narrowing, dangerous and unreadable. Don't, he warned. His voice was raw, ragged. I have to, I whispered back. My hand slid over his, steadying it, grounding him. For a heartbeat, the war between us and around us went silent. Just his eyes on mine, just his breath mingling with mine in the thick air. Then he moved. His hand shot up, gripping the back of my neck, pulling me across the seat until our lips nearly collided. His breath was hot, metallic with blood, intoxicating. His mouth hovered over mine, a single tortured inch between us. You don't know what you're asking for, he rasped, his forehead pressing against mine. You don't know what it means to touch a man like me. But my lips parted, trembling with words I didn't dare say. Then show me. The storm roared outside, but inside that car, a different storm raged, one I wasn't sure either of us would survive. His hand was still at my neck, fingers rough, holding me like I might slip away if he didn't anchor me. The air between us was molten, my lips trembling so close to his that I could taste the iron tang of blood lingering on his breath. For one heartbeat, he resisted. His jaw clenched, his chest rose and fell too fast, and I thought maybe he'd pull back, maybe he'd lock himself in that steel fortress again, but then he broke. Damian's mouth crashed against mine, violent, consuming, desperate. The kiss wasn't soft. It wasn't tender. It was war, his tongue claiming mine, his grip at my throat forcing me closer until I couldn't breathe without him. I gasped into him, my body arching, every nerve set on fire. The taste was sin and salvation all at once. Blood, rain, gunpowder, and beneath it all, him. He growled into my mouth, dragging me into his lap, my knees bracketing his hips, my hands clutching at his soaked shirt. The wet fabric clung to his skin, and I felt the sharp cut of muscle beneath my fingers, the heat of him searing me through the storm-chilled air. Mine, he snarled against my lips, his teeth grazing, biting. You hear me? You belong to me. I should have fought it, should have shoved him back, screamed at the monster who'd just drenched his hands in blood, but instead, I clung tighter, my lips chasing his like I'd been starved and only now found water. You're insane, I breathed, breaking the kiss for half a second. His hand tightened in my hair, forcing my head back so his lips hovered at my throat. His laugh was dark, broken, beautiful. Yes, he murmured against my skin, his breath hot as fire. But you'll be insane with me. His teeth scraped my pulse, and I shuddered so hard I thought I'd come undone right there. The world outside could burn, but in that car, with his hands bruising my skin and his mouth marking me, I knew I'd already surrendered. The windows fogged with our breath, the storm outside raging like it mirrored us. His mouth devoured mine again, harder this time, his tongue driving past my lips as if he meant to consume every last piece of me. I clung to him, my nails digging into his shoulders, pulling at the soaked fabric until it tore at the seams. The sound of ripping cloth made him groan low, primal, his hips surging upward into mine with bruising force. Damian. My voice cracked on his name, half a plea, half a warning. Say it again. His lips trailed fire along my jaw, down my throat. Each kiss was a brand, each scrape of his teeth a threat and a promise. Say my name while you burn for me. Damian. This time it spilled out, broken, desperate. His hand slid beneath my ruined dress, cold fingers against hot skin, dragging the fabric up until it pooled around my waist. I shivered under his touch, but it wasn't from the rain. His palms gripped my thighs, thumbs pressing hard enough to leave marks, pulling me flush against the rigid line of his body. You don't understand, he rasped, his forehead pressed against mine, his eyes wild. I can't stop. I won't stop. Then don't, I whispered, the confession ripped from somewhere I didn't know existed inside me. Something inside him snapped. His mouth claimed me again, desperate and reckless, while his hands roamed, mapping every inch, every curve, like he needed to memorize me in case the storm swallowed us whole. The car rocked with our frenzy, the air thick with our ragged breaths, and the sound of skin meeting skin. My body arched, yielding even as my mind screamed of danger, of betrayal, of everything wrong with this. But in that storm, wrapped in his violence and his need, I had never felt more alive, and when he finally thrust us over the edge, body, soul, and every forbidden thing between, I knew there was no going back, not for him, not for me. We were both ruined. The storm still howled outside, but inside the car, it was only silence. Heavy, suffocating, the kind that presses against your chest and won't let you breathe. I was still draped over him, skin sticky with sweat, my dress ruined, my body trembling in ways that had nothing to do with the cold. His chest rose and fell under my cheek, ragged breaths that matched my own. For a moment, neither of us moved. The world had ended and restarted in the space between our mouths, our bodies. Then his hand slid up my back, slow, almost tender. It wasn't Damian's usual touch, commanding, bruising, consuming. It was hesitant, like he didn't know what softness felt like. I lifted my head, meeting his gaze in the dim light. His eyes were darker than I'd ever seen them, shadows devouring the green until there was nothing left but hunger and something else, something dangerous. Regret? Number, not regret. Possession. "You should hate me," he whispered, voice raw, like gravel dragged over glass. "I do," I breathed, though the word felt hollow against the way my body curled into his. His thumb brushed my swollen lower lip. His gaze dropped there, and I felt the tremor in his hand, the war he was fighting against himself. "Then why do you taste like salvation?" I flinched at the word. Because he wasn't salvation. He was the reason for my nightmares, the shadow at the edge of my life. But my silence betrayed me. His grip tightened at my waist, pulling me closer, almost desperate. "Don't you dare run from this, Elara. Don't pretend what just happened didn't change you." "It changed nothing," I lied. My voice cracked, giving me away. His smile was sharp, broken. "Oh, little dove. It changed everything." He kissed my temple then, soft, almost reverent, and that was worse than his violence. Because tenderness from him was a weapon too, one I had no defense against. As the storm eased into quiet drizzle, I realized something far more terrifying than his obsession. I didn't want him to let me go. The rain had dwindled into a whisper against the windshield, but inside the car the air still pulsed, heavy with what we'd done. My dress clung to me, wrinkled and ruined. His shirt was torn open, buttons scattered somewhere on the floor. Neither of us spoke. The silence wasn't empty. It was loaded, dangerous. Damian sat back against the leather seat, one arm draped over the wheel, the other still firm at my waist, as if letting go wasn't an option. His eyes stayed on me, unblinking, unrelenting. I shifted, trying to reclaim a fraction of distance, but his hand only tightened, dragging me back down onto his lap. "Don't," he warned softly, the kind of soft that was sharper than any blade. "If you move away from me now, Elara, I'll lose what little control I have left." My pulse stuttered. "You call that control?" His mouth curved into something that wasn't a smile, more like a promise. "You haven't seen me without it." I should have been terrified. Maybe I was, but the fear tangled with something hotter, darker, curling low in my stomach. "You think this means anything?" I asked, forcing my voice steady. "It was a mistake." His thumb brushed the inside of my thigh, slow, deliberate. "A mistake you begged for." Heat flared in my cheeks, humiliation and desire warring inside me. "You don't know me." His gaze sharpened, trapping me. "You think I don't?" I know the sound you make when you're about to shatter. I know the way your body trembles when you're fighting yourself. And I know," he leaned in, his lips grazing my ear, "that no one else will ever touch you again." My breath hitched. "You don't get to decide that." He pulled back just enough for me to see the truth written all over his face. Cold, dangerous certainty. I already did. The storm had passed, but sitting there with his claims still burning against my skin, I realized something chilling. Damian Vale hadn't just broken past my defenses. He'd staked his flag, and whether I wanted it or not, my body, my soul, my freedom, I was already his territory. The drive back was suffocating. The storm had broken, leaving the night eerily calm, but inside the car, the silence gnawed at me. Damian's hand never left my thigh, an anchor disguised as a shackle, his thumb idly tracing circles that felt more like brands than touches. By the time we reached the mansion, my body was raw, my mind frayed. The gates opened, the gravel crunched beneath the tires, and the estate loomed in the darkness, stone walls dripping with rain, windows glowing like the eyes of some beast waiting to swallow me whole. He killed the engine but didn't move. His gaze cut to me, sharp and unreadable. "Inside," he ordered softly. Not a command barked, but spoken with the kind of quiet certainty that allowed no refusal. My legs shook when I stepped out, the chill of wet night air clinging to my bare skin where my dress had torn. Damian fell into step beside me, his presence towering, inescapable. The door creaked open under his hand, and the mansion swallowed us in silence. Inside, the air was different, thicker, almost watchful. Shadows draped across the grand hall, flickering under the dim light of the chandelier. I wrapped my arms around myself, but the chill wasn't from the cold. It was the way he looked at me, like I wasn't just prey anymore, like I was something he had dragged into his lair and had no intention of releasing. He stepped closer, his hand brushing my damp hair back from my face. "You're shivering." "Maybe I'm just scared," I whispered. "Good." His thumb lingered at my cheekbone, a soft caress that contrasted too sharply with the words. "Fear keeps you sharp, but here," his voice dropped, husky, dangerous. "You'll learn that it isn't fear that ruins you, little dove. It's craving what you should despise." Before I could reply, he bent, brushing his lips against my temple. Not a kiss, an unspoken vow. And I realized something that hollowed me out to the bone. The storm outside had ended, but the storm inside these walls was only just beginning. The halls of Damian's mansion seemed endless, every corridor lit by flickering sconces that cast shadows like reaching hands across the walls. My heels clicked softly against marble as he led me deeper inside, his hand at the small of my back, steady, unyielding, reminding me with every step that I wasn't free. He brought me into a sitting room, grand but cold. Heavy velvet curtains shut out the night, and a fire smoldered low in the hearth, throwing gold and crimson across the room. "Sit." His voice was quiet, but left no room for refusal. I sank into the armchair, every nerve aware of him as he moved behind a bar cart, pouring amber liquid into 2 glasses. His movements were precise, deliberate, like everything he did was part of a game I didn't understand yet. He handed me a glass. The liquor burned down my throat, heat chasing away the chill in my bones. "Do you know why I brought you here?" he asked, settling across from me, his gaze cutting through the firelight. I forced myself to meet his eyes. "Because you enjoy control." His mouth curved, not quite a smile. "Control is too easy. Anyone can control with fear. What I want," he leaned forward, elbows braced on his knees, his voice a low murmur, "is your surrender." The words slithered through me, dangerously seductive. I tried to laugh, but it cracked in my throat. "You won't get it." "You already gave it," he countered, eyes narrowing. "In the storm. In the way you clung to me like I was the only thing keeping you alive." Heat flared in my cheeks, shame twisting with the memory. That wasn't surrender. That was survival. He rose slowly, prowling toward me like a predator, giving his prey a head start before the kill. My heart pounded as he stopped before me, caging me in with one hand on the chair's armrest. Survival, he whispered, his lips so close I could feel his breath. Surrender. Desire. Fear. Do you know what they all have in common, little dove? I shook my head, pulse hammering. They all taste the same on your lips. His thumb brushed over my mouth, slow, reverent, while his gaze burned me alive. And in that moment, sitting in his mansion with shadows stretching long around us, I realized that the most dangerous place wasn't outside in the storm. It was here, in the quiet, in the silk, in the shadows, where he had me exactly where he wanted me. The fire had burned lower, shadows stretching long across the sitting room when Damian finally pulled away. He didn't look at me as he set his empty glass aside, only said, "Come." I hesitated, but he was already moving, and the silence of the mansion made my defiance feel loud, childish. I followed. The corridors were hushed, lined with portraits of stern men and elegant women whose painted eyes seemed to follow me. My skin prickled as though the walls themselves were watching. He stopped before a heavy oak door at the end of the hall. The key turned in the lock with a metallic scrape that echoed too loudly. He pushed it open, revealing a room drenched in shadows and dust. It wasn't just any room. It was a study. My father's study. The air hit me like a punch. Cigars and leather, old paper and something colder beneath it. My breath caught. "Why would you bring me here?" Damian's gaze cut to me, sharp, assessing. "Because this house is mine now, and so are its ghosts." I stepped inside despite myself, my fingers brushing the desk I remembered from childhood. There were still scratches in the wood where I'd carved tiny shapes when I was too small to reach the ink bottle. "Your father built empires here," Damian said, circling the room like a predator stalking old prey. "And he lost them here too. Every deal, every betrayal, all of it began within these walls." I swallowed hard, turning toward him. "And you expect me to what? Inherit his sins?" He stopped in front of me, close enough that the heat of his body made my skin tingle. "No, I expect you to understand them." His hand lifted, tracing the dust from a shelf with a fingertip before brushing it against my cheek, leaving the faintest streak. "The past is a chain, Elara. You wear it whether you choose to or not." I shivered, not from cold. "And you? Are you the chain or the one holding it?" His eyes darkened. "Both." For a moment, the house seemed to hold its breath. The fire down the hall flickered. The storm outside whispered through the glass, and in the shadows of my father's study, I realized that Damian wasn't just pulling me into his world. He was rewriting mine. Damian didn't speak as he led me out of my father's study, but his silence was worse than words. It pressed down on me, made my pulse skitter as we wound through the mansion's upper halls. He stopped before another door, this one newer, the wood polished, the brass handle gleaming as if it had been touched often. My breath caught when he pushed it open. The room wasn't dusty or forgotten. It was alive, waiting. Heavy velvet drapes hung over the windows, shutting out the night. A massive bed dominated the space, dressed in black silk sheets that shimmered faintly under the glow of the chandelier. A fire roared in the hearth, warm and golden, spilling shadows across the walls. My steps faltered. "What is this?" His hand pressed to the small of my back, guiding me forward. "Your room." My chest tightened. "No, my room is gone." His tone cut like a blade. "This is where you sleep now, where you breathe, where you dream." He leaned closer, his breath warm against my ear. "And where you remember who owns you." Heat crawled up my neck, shame and anger tangled together. "You can't just decide that." His hand slid to my jaw, forcing me to face him. I don't decide. I take. And you? His thumb brushed my lower lip. You've already given me more than you realize. I should have screamed at him, should have fought. Instead, my eyes betrayed me, flicking to the bed draped in silk. The thought of lying there, the scent of him clinging to the pillows, his shadow stretched over me. My body betrayed me before my mind could resist. He saw it. Of course he did. His smile was small, dangerous, triumphant. You'll get used to it, he murmured, stepping back at last. Soon this room will feel more like home than any place you've ever known. And as the fire crackled and the silk sheets whispered in the flickering light, I realized with a shudder that he might be right, because a part of me already felt it. The door shut behind him with a finality that made my chest ache. I stood alone in the room he had chosen, surrounded by firelight and silk, the scent of smoke and him clinging to the air. My hands trembled as I touched the sheets. Smooth, cold, waiting. This wasn't my room. This wasn't my life. And yet, when I lowered myself onto the bed, my body betrayed me, sinking into the silk as though it had always belonged here. I curled against the pillows, but sleep wouldn't come. Every flicker of the fire cast his shadow across the walls. Every whisper of the storm outside felt like his breath at my ear. When I closed my eyes, I still felt his hands on me, bruising, claiming, his lips at my throat, his voice echoing, mine. I hated him, I wanted him, I feared him, and somewhere in the chaos of my heart, I realized the most terrifying truth of all. I was no longer fighting to get out. I was fighting not to drown in him completely. The fire crackled lower, the shadows stretched long, and in the silence of that first night, lying in the bed he chose, I finally understood what Damian had promised me all along. This wasn't the end of the storm. It was only the beginning.
Thank you for listening to Dark Romance. What you've heard tonight is only the beginning. Desire, betrayal, and obsession will twist deeper still in part 2. So stay close, stay curious, and never forget, in the dark, love is the most dangerous game of all. Thank you for listening, and until next time, step carefully in the shadows.